Good morning. Um, I hope you're still there, possibly wondering what happened, as indeed am I. I think a little glitch, so nothing's ever the same. Um, so can you hear me? Anyone there? I'm not going to do the countdown, but as long as you're there, I am content. Anyway, I will go ahead. We begin. In his delicate, rather beautiful song, Another Grey Morning, James Taylor describes the unbearable weight of repetition. She hears the baby waking up downstairs. She hears the foghorn calling out across the sound. Repetition in the morning air. It's just too much to bear. It's the feeling of ennui, of malaise, or even worse perhaps, the feeling of no feeling at all, merely a repeated thud of the past, which may afflict anyone in varying gradations at various times. It stands, it would seem, in direct contrast to the sentiments expressed in the popular hymn, Morning Has Broken, which is the subject of this talk. Now, several things may have come to mind when you heard Morning Has Broken, possibly the tune, maybe the Cat Stevens version or the Demis Roussos version. There have been dozens. Or you may have been transported back to distant or even recent recollections of school assemblies, Miss something or other from RE hammering out the chords while a hall full of distracted children bellow words with only the loosest affiliation to their tune. One of my earliest memories is of hearing the Lord's Prayer in primary school and asking the pupil next to me, "Deliver us from what?" To which he answered, "Eagle, deliver us from eagle," leaving me terrified of this winged menace lurking on the school roof, withheld from its urge to devour me only by my entreaties to the divine for deliverance. Anyway, back to the present, or nearly. Sometime at the end of last year, I was chatting with a friend who'd been on a creative mindfulness retreat called Aspects of Light at Nambanton Hall in the UK. He told me of going for an early walk with a few others, climbing up a hill and sitting down to watch the sunlight spread over the ancient landscape of the Charnwood Forest. Somebody started to sing Morning Has Broken. It seemed appropriate. Why not? And they all joined in. And according to my friend, it was just, one of those moments. I thought it a delightful anecdote and forgot about it. Shortly after that, however, another friend posted some photos on social media from their visit to the village of Alfriston in East Sussex. Among the many charming things about Alfriston is the fact that Morning Has Broken was written there by a poet called Eleanor Farjeon. And when I heard that, forgive my ignorance, it struck me that, of course, it wasn't conjured out of the innards of Miss Something or Other's piano. There was a poet involved. It was the same as hearing that In the Bleak Midwinter was written by Christina Rossetti. You take another look, don't you? Bleak is not a meteorological phenomenon here, and it doesn't matter that Bethlehem never gets so cold. It's a figurative description of a human experience, and it asks perhaps, what is the gift of one's heart in that moment which melts the ice? So, Eleanor Farjeon, who was she? The answer is a great poet. She was a friend of Robert Frost, D.H. Lawrence, Walter Delamere, Edward Thomas. Born in 1899, she lived through 2 world wars, lost friends in both, and died in 1965. So she was around when we were singing her song. She came from a literary family, spent some of her childhood in France. She was terribly shy by all accounts. I have a picture of her here. Doesn't she look lovely? She had a playfulness about her. The pseudonyms she used, Tom Fool, Merry Andrew, and Chimera, in various publications say a lot about her. She created a remarkable body of work. She won the Carnegie Medal and the Hans Christian Andersen Award, among others. There is an award for children's literature in her honor. Before we get to the hymn, I'd like to look at a couple of other poems so we get some context. Now that you must shortly go is constructed as a perfect Shakespearean sonnet. But what she does with the form is powerful. The poem is addressed to a friend leaving for the front, probably Edward Thomas, her greatest friend, also a writer, who died in battle in 1917. Now that you must shortly go, now that you must shortly go the way which in these bloodshot years uncounted men have gone in vanishing armies day by day, and in their numbers will not come again. I must not strain the moments of our meeting, striving for each look, each accent, not to miss or question of our parting at our greeting. Is this the last of all? Is this or this? Last sight of all it may be with these eyes, last touch, last hearing, since eyes, hands, and ears, even serving love, are our mortalities, and cling to what they own in mortal fears. But oh, let end what will, I hold you fast by immortal love, which has no first or last. It's a poem that needs to be read slowly and several times. The lines are so beautifully weighted. I must not strain the moments of our meeting. I could spend the rest of the talk on that line alone. But the point in the tradition of a sonnet is delivered in the final couplet. But oh, let end what will, I hold you fast by immortal love, which has no first or last. It's a classical idea, a poetic idea, indeed a religious idea, that love, unlimited, cannot be held subject to circumstance. In one of her books, Martin Pippin in the Apple Orchard, she wrote, all the ill that is in us comes from fear and all the good from love. And in the same work, no love story has ever been told twice. I never heard any tale of lovers that did not seem to me as new as the world on its first morning, which of course is a precursor of the hymn. Before I get on to that, one last digression. It's a poem which she wrote about poetry. Graham, you've just joined me. The poem. Graham, have I been audible? Well, I'm just reading a poem. What is poetry? Who knows? Not a rose, but the scent of the rose. Not the sky, but the light of the sky. Not the fly, but the gleam of the fly. Not the sea, but the sound of the sea. Not myself, but what makes me see, hear, and feel something that prose cannot. And what it is, who knows? Wrapped in a glorious simplicity of language is a profound and ultimately unfathomable concept, echoing in some ways the French symbolist poets such as Mallarmé in their quest for essence. It's not the thing that matters, she says, nor even the apprehension of it. What matters is that which lights that which sees, hears, and feels. So to the hymn, it was revised in the 50s, but I'm sticking to the original, which was published in 1931, bearing in mind that it was written for children, set to a traditional Gaelic melody, which I have no intention, you may be pleased to hear, of singing. Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the word. Sweet the rain's new fall, sunlit from heaven, like the first dewfall on the first grass. Praise for the sweetness of the wet garden, sprung in completeness, where his feet pass. It certainly has a lilt. Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, born of the one light, Eden saw play. Praise with elation, praise every morning, God's recreation of the new day. The first two lines are unarguable. Day breaks. But then we get to Blackbird has spoken, which rhymes with broken, of course. But I always thought, well, do they sing or do they speak? And if they do speak, what are they speaking of? Hello, worms. This is my territory. And yet we know that feeling when we hear, suddenly, unexpectedly, bird song cutting through the noise of our thoughts, or the blur of our pain, or the churn of our worries. Doesn't it speak of the fact that we can hear it, of that which makes hearing, seeing, and feeling possible? Of course, the first bird of the morning, ornithologically speaking, would be more like the imagined raptor perched on my primary school roof. But perhaps there's another sense that for us in that moment it is completely new. The English writer, Arnold Bennett, who had an omelette named after him, I mean, who needs a Carnegie Medal, wrote, "Every scene, even the commonest, is wonderful, if only one can detach oneself, casting off all memory of use and custom, and behold it, as it were, for the first time." He doesn't mean without any knowledge. He means without the kind of knowledge that leads to the cursory dismissal of something as, oh, that again. The two most potent words in advertising, I'm told, are free and new. Free is, well, it's easy to understand, isn't it? We cherish our liberty, but new? What about that? What is this quality of newness in our nature that we so ardently wish to realize in the fact of our lives? The poem doesn't really answer the question, but it reminds us of it, and that, I think, is the key. Here is the song again. Praise means to prize, to value, at the very least to notice. In Christianity, the word logos represents Christ, but it means, in a way, meaning itself, whatever you take that to mean. Completeness needs nothing added nor taken away. There are echoes, of course, of other poems, Shakespeare's Lark, perhaps, at break of day, singing hymns at heaven's gate, Blake's Jerusalem, the myth of Christ's visit to England's mountains green. The final verse alludes to unity, the one light, and recreation, the eternal process of change, which is obviously the heart of it. Heraclitus said you can't jump into the same river twice because it's never the same twice. I once asked a Buddhist monk why the monastic life was so repetitive and got a lecture on the difference between change and novelty. So perhaps there's no such thing as another grey morning, unless that's how we see it. Some moods, of course, can be difficult to shift and circumstances can seem all-consuming, but it can help, perhaps, simply to see things as new, which is not a bad thing for children to hear or sing. And even if we feel we've heard it 1,000 times before, well, we haven't. Philosophy Live, glitched or unglitched, is here every Friday morning during term time. Have a wonderful day and a great weekend. Thank you for your company. Apologies if we had some technical issues at the beginning. I hope we got it all in. And have a good time. See you next time.